Tell me about some of those early conversations. I got to hear something about Dabo that I may not already know.
Man, well, I'm coming back to it. About a year before I committed, March of, my sophomore year, I had probably had 6 or 7 offers. And my mom had asked me, "Kid, if you could go play anywhere in the country or for what head coach, what would it be?" And I said, "Oh, Coach Sweeny, like that's an easy choice." And then we both kind of looked at each other like, "That's a big jump. That's Clemson we're talking about. I don't know if I'm that good." A year later, I ended up committing, and it was just crazy. But Coach Sweeny is one of a kind. First of all, I don't know if you know this. It's not nothing crazy, but his memory is like the craziest thing on planet Earth. Like you can have a player that he coached 15 years ago and he hasn't seen that kid in 10 years and he can remember where he lived on his official, what his mom cooked for him, everybody in his family's name. And like this is 15 years later and he's had thousands of kids come through his program. His memory is just absurd. And that's a good thing and a bad thing because at times, you'll have not a good practice or something and he'll let you hear it on the field. And then 10 minutes later in the cafeteria after practice. And then the next day, all about one throw that I missed or something like that. His memory is he's always wanting to coach you. But he's also cares about his players so much, and I wouldn't want to play for anybody else. And I'd come back for one more year, and I think that proves it. I didn't want to go play for anybody else. I want to go play for him one more year.
The Field Talk podcast is presented by Roback. If you know me, you know that I am pretty much always outfitted in Roback. They have all the best gear, and seemingly every time I go to the website, there's something new. At least where I am at this very moment, it's very, very cold. Well, Roback has upped the outerwear game, all kinds of awesome jackets. And of course, the signature hoodies, the polos, the shorts, the joggers, pretty much everything you need from head to toe over at roback.com. That's RHOBACK.com. And if you're a first-time customer, enter my name, Field, for 20% off your first order. If you're a fan of college football, you probably know the name Cade Klubnik. The record-setting and highly prolific Clemson quarterback has helped the Tigers to a ton of wins, which also included a trip to the first ever 12-team college football playoff. But you may not know that much about the journey of a young man who was born in Texas, went to a very, very notable high school, and made his way all the way to Clemson in South Carolina. To learn more about his journey, what it's like being the quarterback of Clemson, how a kid whose parents both went to Texas A&M got away from the Lone Star State, and so much more, here's today's conversation with Clemson quarterback Cade Klubnik on the Field Talk podcast. Cade Klubnik, Clemson quarterback, returning for one more year. I think anybody who follows college football knows a whole lot about you and your time with the Tigers program. But I want to go back, Cade. Where'd you come from? Where'd you start your life? Where did the origins of Cade Klubnik take place?
Yeah, born and raised in Austin, Texas. Never lived anywhere else in my life until I came to Clemson. But yeah, born and raised there. Youngest of four. Got two great parents that raised me, and went to Westlake High School. Grew up in that school district. Kind of dreaming of playing there. Watched my older brothers play there and stuff. So came from there, and now I'm here.
Well, you're here, but when somebody like me who follows football religiously knows Westlake High School, not just because of the fact that you went there, but it's a football factory. So you are one of, there are a lot of notable quarterbacks that went to Westlake High School, but Drew Brees, Matthew Stafford, Sam Ellinger. What's in the water down there?
Yeah. You definitely named a couple guys: Nick Foles, Drew Brees, Sam Ellinger.
Did I say Stanford? Did I say Stafford? I meant Nick Foles. That was totally
Nick
on
Foles.
Me.
Yeah. You're good. Yeah, those are three guys that kind of definitely led the way. Whenever I was getting, my first year on varsity, we hadn't won a state championship in 25 years. And the last guy to win one was Drew Brees. And we had been a really successful program with lots of great players coming out of it. We hadn't won state in a while. We were like, all right, we gotta go do something about this. So we ended up winning back to back, which was pretty cool. Had only been done one other time at that classification. But yeah, just the way that my head coach that was there, Todd Dodge, the way he ran things there, it was like a college. Whenever I got to Clemson, it was no different. And just the hours that we put in, the chemistry within the team bonding that we do, we're fixing to have mat drills in about a month and a half here. We did our mat drills at Westlake, and it was tough. And we did spring ball just like we do here. The film work that we do, but I mean, I think that they teach you how to be an elite player, but also the way that Coach Dodge ran things, and they're probably still running things now, is you're going to be a great man by the time you leave the program too.
So 3 seasons, back to back to back. If I'm not mistaken, undefeated in those 3 seasons as well. Just a ridiculous run for you. But you mentioned the lineage of these quarterbacks. Have you had the chance to ever meet, correspond with some of the older two, and Drew Brees and Nick Foles? I imagine you and Sam, because of your proximity and age, probably have had some crossover at some point in your life.
Yeah, I met Drew a long time ago. And I was probably in like fifth or sixth grade. I think my brother did like a 7-on-7 tournament that he had in Orlando in like 2015, 2016. I don't know what grade I would have been in, but yeah, I met him like briefly. I mean, I was just a Pop Warner kid then, and then met Nick for the first time in like third grade. Met him at like the most random thing. My mom was at a workout class with his mom, and I came along, and we had a whole deal. It was pretty fun. And then saw actually Nick again this summer. Went out to California to go train with my quarterback coach Jordan Palmer, and went down a couple days early and hung out with Nick, and it was a great time. Played some golf. It was fun. Yeah, and then know Sam just because he played with my brother and stuff, and he's always been a great mentor of mine. I've known him forever. So
Was it common for, I got to imagine, quarterbacks in your area, I mean, specifically quarterbacks or players that wanted to play quarterback at Westlake must have thought to themselves, I want to model my game after one of these guys. Was there any of those three that you kind of wanted to be like growing up as a quarterback, or was there maybe somebody else you drew some inspiration from?
yeah, I mean, I never really of those three, I never really wanted to, I guess, model my game after them. Um, I've never really tried to be like somebody else, and I don't really mean that like I don't know. I've never really like tried to be somebody else. I've just tried to go play my game. But I always loved watching Drew play. He was one of my favorites playing when he was playing. Loved watching Nick play. Those are two of my favorite quarterbacks growing up. Um, I think definitely different playing styles than I have and that they had and their strengths. Um, but two guys that I definitely looked up to in their leadership and the way that they led, but also played the game and their grittiness to play for as long as they did. Both Super Bowl champions. That's it's a pretty rare thing to have two guys like that went to your high school. So definitely guys that I looked up to a ton.
All right, so you have four quarterbacks from this same high school, and there's a huge college football program right there in that neighborhood, of course, University of Texas, but you end up at Clemson. So I want to hear about the first time that maybe you heard from Clemson and what that process was like. When did you know that your heart was set to be a Clemson Tiger?
Yeah, my whole recruiting process was over Zoom and FaceTimes and phone calls. So I was during COVID, so a lot of these Zoom calls right here, a lot of phone calls. I mean, I remember stepping out of class sometimes, to talk to coaches and stuff. There was a couple times like I literally got offered by a coach, when I was in government class or something like that. It was wild the year that was, just because of COVID and everything that it had. So I never really got to visit a ton, but my dream had been to go play college football, and to make that happen, I knew that I had to make an effort with reaching out to coaches. So starting going into my sophomore year, started reaching out to all these coaches, and end up having, I want to say like 15 going into my junior year after my sophomore year. And after like halfway through halfway through the summer of like going into my junior year, I end up, reaching out to Coach Streeter and Coach Elliott, and not Coach Dodge because he's not on social media. Sorry, not Coach Sweeny because he's not on social media, but just DMing him and sending him my highlight tapes, and just saying, hey, it'd be awesome to get in touch, and here's my phone number, and got in touch and started talking to him. And I remember I talked to Coach Streeter like one time on like a Monday at 8 p.m. And I always wanted to be very like, I don't know, not aggressive, but like, I guess starting the conversations and stuff. So I remember asking him one time, hey, is this a good time to call? It's like Monday at 8 o'clock. And he's like, yeah, it's a great time to call. So from like June until the next March, I called him every Monday at pretty much 8 o'clock. because I knew that was a good time to call him, and I wanted to, show that I really loved him. And obviously, our relationship grew since then. And to the point where I committed. But that was one thing. Like, you just got to reach out and start communication somehow. But I remember just Clemson. The reason I really wanted to come here, which was kind of your question. But the reason I wanted to come to Clemson was because I felt like through those conversations with a lot of coaches and everything, I felt like at times I was just a name on a checklist, and I felt like at times I just was a person somebody would call at Tuesday at 2 o'clock and talk to me for 30 seconds, say, all right, talk next week. Where I talked to Coach Streeter and I talked to Coach Elliott, and the conversations I had with Coach Sweeny later in my recruitment, Coach Streeter would talk to me about, hey, how's your family doing? How's your brother doing? And it was very intentional conversation about like wanting to know me as a person, not just about football or whatever. And just the culture of what Clemson was, and just through a phone call, I knew that was just a tiny, tiny part of what it was going to be whenever I got here. And I just felt something was different.
So at some point, the recruitment gets sort of the baton gets passed from the various assistant coaches, Tony Elliott, Coach Streeter, to eventually Coach Sweeny, who was a
Yeah.
football character. What was
Yeah.
that like? Tell me about some of those early conversations. I got to hear something about Dabo that I may not already know.
Man, well, I'm coming back to it. About a year before I committed, so March of my sophomore year, I had probably had 6 or 7 offers, and my mom had asked me, "Kade, if you could go play anywhere in the country, or for what head coach, what would it be?" And I said, "Oh, Coach Sweeny, like that's an easy choice." And then we both kind of looked at each other like, "That's a pretty long way away. Like that's a not like geographic, like that's a big jump from." That's Clemson we're talking about. I don't know if I'm that good. So a year later, I ended up committing, and it was just crazy. But Coach Sweeny he is one of a kind. First of all, I don't know if you know this. It's not nothing crazy, but his memory is like the craziest thing on planet Earth. Like, you can have a player that he coached 15 years ago, and he'll come up to him probably, and he hasn't seen that kid in 10 years, and he can remember where he lived on his official, what his mom cooked for him, everybody in his family's name. And like, this is 15 years later, and he's had thousands of kids come through his program. Like, his memory is just absurd. And that's a good thing and a bad thing, because at times, you'll have not a good practice or something, and he'll let you hear it on the field. And then 10 minutes later, and then in the cafeteria after practice, and then the next day, all about one throw that I missed or something like that. His memory is, he's always wanting to coach you. But he's also a player that cares about his players so much, and I wouldn't want to play for anybody else. And I'd come back for one more year, and I think that proves it. I didn't want to go play for anybody else. I want to go play for him one more year. So.
I wanted to get into it at some point, but this seems like the perfect time to do so. You made a decision. You had a thoughtful choice to make. If you enter the draft this year, or if you enter the transfer portal, which is a real thing now in college football, you would have been amongst the most sought after players in the portal. You would have been amongst the top drafted quarterbacks in this year's class. How did you decide to run it back for one more year with Clemson?
Yeah, I think that first of all, I think I need another year to just really develop and keep getting better. I've got 2 years of really under my belt starting, and played some my freshman year, but it's that I want to go get better. But I'm still hungry for what I know this program has. And we're going to be bringing 9 starters back on offense, and probably 7 or 8 on defense. And we've got a great thing coming back. And I came to Clemson to win a national championship, and that's still right here for me. And I think that we got the best team that we've had since I've been here coming back, and that's really what I wanted.
What's the balance like, though, when you're trying to decide between potentially entering the NFL and sticking around in school for one more year? Is it getting feedback from NFL evaluators about how high you'd be drafted? Is it strictly, hey, I haven't accomplished everything I want to at Clemson, the NFL can wait until another day? What goes into that process?
Yeah, I think both. I mean, I wanted to hear kind of where I would be at, in terms of draft wise, and kind of balancing that with just kind of seeing where I would be at, and I wanted to be at a certain spot, and I don't think I was quite there. So I want to come back for another year, and really have a great 4th year. That's kind of what I want to have, and go have the best year I've had yet, and just catapult that draft stock, hopefully even higher. But I mean, the biggest thing is I want to come back and play with these guys for another year. Just such a tight group, and it's crazy how fast it's all flown by. But come back, and we've got pretty much everybody back, and that's really really exciting to see what we could, especially just on my side of the ball, on the offensive side of the ball. It was really fun to see what we could do. We had a really fun offense and really tight group, and for almost everybody coming back, it's exciting.
It's exciting, and it's also really rare as we are now in the NIL and transfer portal era of college football. You've kind of lived through the evolution of it. What's it like being a part of this sort of reshaped version of college football compared to not just like 3 years ago, but 5, 10, 20 years ago? Like no one transferred because you had to wait for an extra year to play.
Yeah, it's crazy. We're like the little, you know, test. Like we're the first ones. I don't know the right word. Whatever that animal is that they call
Guinea
it.
pigs. Yeah.
Guinea pig. We're the guinea
There you
pigs.
go. There you
We're the
go.
guinea pigs of the new generation of college football, and we didn't necessarily sign up for it, but we're it. And when it comes to NIL and transfer portal and all of that, I think that a good reminder for me is I already said it. I dreamed of playing college football one day to go play football. I didn't dream of playing college football to go make money. That wasn't why I worked, until I got here. I didn't work my butt off until I got here to do that. I did it because I want to come play. That's just a reality that I've had to continue to remind myself. But you also got to be wise. You gotta be wise and taking advantage of the opportunities that are ahead of you.
So one of the things, Kate, that I've always wanted to ask somebody who played at Clemson, while acknowledging that I don't really know that many people that have will play at Clemson one day, being a guy from the Northeast, is your stadium entrance. I love watching it on TV. What's it like when you're actually in the center of it yourself?
It's insane. I think it gives you a moment to kind of smell the roses too, because you come off the bus. You really the coolest part. One of the coolest parts I think is coming around the corner. Is coming around the corner and kind of seeing the edge of the stadium kind of go away, and then you just kind of see it all open up. Um, and then you hop off the bus and you run to the rock, and you're all locking arms, and the whole stadium is just like, I mean, it's like a sea of orange, pretty much. Um, it's insane. It's so cool. It kind of gives you a moment to really smell the roses because you're up there for about a minute, maybe 45 seconds. But because they're finishing the band song and all that, and you're really just kind of looking around, it's pretty cool. And I think that if we didn't get to do that and you really just came straight out of the tunnel, it doesn't really give you a sense of what's really around you at times. You get a little bit of that in warm ups, but I don't ever really try to look around and stuff. I'm really just focused on. I don't really try to look in the stands and all that. It's just yeah. But I think that time it's really cool, and then coming down that hill and running into all of it. I mean, I don't think there's anything like it. There's nothing like it.
Yeah, it's certainly amongst the bucket list items for any college football fan. So acknowledging that there's no other atmosphere like it, at least in your eyes. Are there any other places that you visited and played and thought to yourself, like, that's pretty cool. That was a cool place to go on the road and play against?
Um, Man, I'll say Virginia Tech this year was really cool. That was really sick. Sandman, all that, and that was pretty awesome. It was a really cool environment. It was a really fun game too. I was one of the captains for that game. We switch captains every week, and I was one of the captains of that game. So it was just me and three other guys walking out there when they were really starting the whole thing and the whole song and everything. It was pretty sweet. Um, that place was awesome. Florida State's super cool. Just cool environment. Um, yeah.
Probably no shortage of them in the ACC now that there's so many places to play
Yeah.
too, by the way.
Oh
Like,
man. I mean,
what was that
17
like
teams.
yeah, I was going to say, what's that been like for you? Like, you might have back-to-back games, one in Miami and the next Cal and Berkeley. Like, that's about as far as it gets geographically on the college football map.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. Thankfully I'm not having to travel out to California next season. But that's crazy. I mean, I know our basketball team's having to, like you said, play in Miami one week and then go out and play Stanford the next week. I mean, it's a long way, but it's really cool. And just to have that kind of dynamic in such a cool conference, it's really special. It's really special. It's a really cool deal. And then whenever you get to win the the conference championship and a team of 17 or a conference of 17 teams. It's definitely really cool.
You probably can't say this, so I'll say it at least on my own behalf. We got to change the name. We got to find something else. The Atlantic Coast Conference, when whatever 3 or 4 teams play in the Pacific Coast, we got to work on that. That's on my suggestion box for the yet to be determined college football commissioner. You talked about the playoff and being a part of the first ever 12-team playoff. At least on the outside, a lot of the conversation was, what impact does it have on the regular season? Does it devalue the regular season? Does it render rivalry games moot? That's just people on the outside looking and talking. You're going through it. You're playing it. You're the quarterback of one of the best teams in college football. Did this season feel different at all to you?
Yeah, I think it did. I mean, this, especially the last couple of weeks was a roller coaster. Um, losing our last regular season game, and then thinking we're out of the playoffs, and then just a couple hours later, we're right back in it. Or sorry, not out of the playoffs, out of the ACC championship game. We lost the last game, which took us out of the playoffs. Then we were back in the ACC championship game, which gave us the opportunity to get back in the playoffs. So it was a wild roller coaster, but it was so fun. It was definitely one of the most fun games or fun seasons I've ever had. Just such a cool year and such a memorable year with lots of ups and downs, but just such a tight group where we got to enjoy the ups so much and then be there for each other through the downs. And just one thing I'm really thankful about here is, it's it's good to go through good times, but it's great to go through them with people you love. And you don't like to go through hard times at all, but it makes it definitely a lot easier when you got people that you love right around you. So that's one thing that I'm really thankful about here is just that we got great people that I'm around every single day that care about Kade as a person, not just a player. And that's inside the facility, outside facility, roommates that I have, whatever it is, it's pretty awesome.
I got to imagine on Clemson's campus, you're amongst the most recognizable students there. Being the quarterback, I think probably that comes with the responsibility. So, what is it like walking around campus on a day-to-day basis? Do you feel like there's a camera constantly following you, or do you feel like you get your piece to make your way from one part of campus to the next?
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like I'm another guy out there.
How?
Hopefully hopefully that's how other people, kind of view me too. But obviously, there's stuff that comes with it. I mean, we had first day of class today and taking roll call, and
Now, you better
I'm
show
having
up
to
for that
introduce
first day back
myself.
at least, right?
Yeah, and it's just kind of how it is. That's kind of what comes with it. But you know, it's really fun to show up to class and walk around campus and everything after a big win, but it's also pretty tough after a loss. You're not wanting to walk into class on that Monday when probably 95% of the people in the building know who you are. So that could be tough too, and you gotta have a great circle around you that truly cares for you and the person you are, and yeah.
All right, some quick hitters about Cade and thinking about you and your football future. Did you grow up a fan of a specific NFL team?
Mostly Texans. Yeah, my dad grew up in Houston,
All
so
right. Yeah. Yeah. How did they?
yeah,
What did your parents think when you decided, or did you ever get offered by Texas A&M? Because as I understand it, your
I
parents both
did.
A&M grads. And what was it like telling your parents, "Hey, I'm not going there. I'm going somewhere else."
Yeah, both my parents went there. Almost everybody on both sides of my family went to A&M. My sister went there. That's the only sibling of mine that went there. My two brothers didn't. But they never pushed me to go there. They wanted me to make the great choice that made me happy and that they felt like was gonna set me up for life. So they loved A&M, but I kind of grew up a fan of them until I was like in eighth grade, and then it just kind of went away. Um, but yeah, I mean, at some point, I kind of had to just brush that off and really kind of reality set in that I had to make a decision somewhere. And I just felt at peace about Clemson. And I never really truly felt at peace about anywhere else except for Clemson. So
When you think about your journey at Clemson so far, what would you say are some of the things that maybe you have learned that you'll take with you, regardless of where life ends up? Obviously, playing in the NFL is probably the next step, but wherever the journey goes beyond your football playing career, what's something that maybe Clemson taught you that you think is particularly valuable?
yeah, number one, finding a great circle around you. I kind of already spoke on it, but just having, 4 to 6 guys or 2 to 3. I mean, just people that truly care about you as a person. Because, Clemson fans, the world, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, they're going to love me one day and hate me the next. And that's reality. So finding 5 to 6 people and having a great family that I'm blessed with that truly loves you for who you are, I would say is one of the biggest things that I would try to have and really try to pursue. Finding a great mentor in football. I had a great couple older friends, that kind of led me through the program and showed me how to do things. And having that from a football standpoint, try to find a GA on the offense or an older quarterback that you can really spend a ton of time with. I'm thinking of, Taj Boyd. He's not a GA, he's an assistant, but Taj Boyd and Paul Tyson on our staff, I spent a ton of time with them because, Coach Sweeny and Coach Riley, I spent a lot of time with Coach Riley too, but, they're doing a lot of their stuff that they need to be doing too. So finding a guy that really knows ball, that may be a little younger, that you can spend a ton of time with. That was a piece of advice that Sam Ellinger gave me. I remember talking to him for like an hour before I got to Clemson, just on a ton of advice. And two of the biggest things that I remember him telling me is, like, truly be the first to facility and the last to leave. If I'm a senior now, I hope that the freshman quarterback that just got here, I hope that he sees my car there every morning that he gets there, and he sees my car there when he's leaving every day. That was one thing that he taught me is leave your car, make sure your car is always there for everybody else, and then find somebody older that you can really spend a lot of time with.
So as you brace for this one final season at Clemson, a very exciting one with all the returning players, what are some of your expectations, your goals for one last ride here as a Clemson Tiger?
Yeah, I mean, I think that more than anything, I kind of just want to leave my mark. I want to leave Clemson better than I found it, and it's a tough place to do that because of how amazing it is here. But I want to hopefully leave an impact on my teammates and coaches around me that through the good and the bad I never changed, and hopefully they can take something from that. That my foundation and Jesus never changed. So hopefully that has an impact on them, whether it's this year or 5 years from now, they can look back on how I lived my life. I would also say, I want to go be a great leader, and go lead these guys in a really special way. And but at the end of the day, I want to go have a great year next year and go win a national championship.
Cade Klubnik, starting quarterback for the Clemson Tigers. We appreciate you joining us here in the Field Talk podcast. Best of luck in this final season. Cannot wait for next fall already.
Absolutely. Appreciate y'all.
Loved catching up with Clemson quarterback Cade Klubnik, who clearly has a very mature head on his shoulders. Really impressed by the way in which he has handled not only being the face of a football program that's amongst the very best in all of college football, but seemingly is the same guy despite the ever-evolving landscape of college football. And I still can't figure out how Texas A&M couldn't land a kid whose parents both went to Texas A&M, but that might tell you everything you need to know about the Clemson football staff. As always, we appreciate you checking out the Field Talk podcast, and a reminder that feedback is appreciated. We are available on any platform that offers you a podcast. If you want to rate and review us, certainly is very helpful. And finally, a huge thank you to Roback, who makes this podcast possible. Roback has all the best gear. Head on over to roback.com. That's RHOBACK.com and enter the promo code FIELD, FIELD, for 20% off your first order. Until next time, we'll talk to you all soon.